If you look at upstate New York and a lot of other areas like it, in the state Senate district that I am heavily involved in, all but 5 of the towns have experienced population loss since 2010. So people are leaving this area, and we have to give people a reason to stay. And I think that's one of the other reasons why I'm so involved and motivated, is because I have seen in these rural areas the severe lack of basic services, whether it's healthcare, and what's so brutal is the mental health and the people with disabilities. There are some people who are disabled who live 30 miles away from their nearest primary care provider, and the policies and the things that have been supposed to, the taxi cabs who are supposed to take Medicaid, they don't do what they're supposed to. There's no one who's overseeing that, and there's no one who's making sure that these very poor people in these very rural areas are getting the services that they deserve. And to me, that's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about those people, and we really shouldn't be talking about basic rights for women or gay people. And that's where I think that's what's putting us at a loss, is it's putting us back even further, because that shouldn't even be an issue that's questioned at this point. In the state Senate campaign that I'm running, she's a woman named Joyce St. She's running against Senator Jim Seward. He has been in office for 32 years. He's the chair of the insurance committee and takes 40% of his campaign contributions from insurance companies and PACs. Joyce is a former corruption investigator, and one of the things that we've found is corruption is one of those issues that really does permeate the political spectrum. Regardless of where you stand, people are tired of corruption in Albany. And there's a colleague of mine named Carolyn. She's managing a campaign, Aidan O'Connor Jr. He's running a state assembly race. He is a 30-year-old gay vegetarian, and he is running in a district that Trump won by almost 30 points. They had a special election in April. He lost by 169 votes. And the reason is because people like Carolyn and Aidan, and people like Joyce and myself, are not afraid to go up and knock on someone's doors, even if they have a Trump sign in front of their house. Those are exactly the people that we need to be talking to, because so many counties in upstate New York voted for Barack Obama overwhelmingly twice, and then Trump came in and was victorious. And we have to ask these people why we've lost them. We have to ask these people what, after 8 years of a Democratic government, they didn't get. And if we're not talking to those people, we're not only doing them a disservice, but we're doing a great disservice to our candidates. Because I know there's some districts where they have a great Democratic advantage in terms of voter registration. In District 51, we have 13,000 more Republicans than we do Democrats. We have a lot of unaffiliated voters too. And I was just voter canvassing up near Cooperstown in Middlefield the other day, and the lists that I print to knock on doors, we are targeting Republicans as well. And why not? Because they need to be spoken to about the same issues that matter to us in a way that's palatable to them. And they took a yard sign for Joyce, a family of 2 Republicans, because we were able to talk about these issues in a way that mattered to them. And it's difficult to do that, and a lot of the difficulty is just doing it in the first place, people being nervous to talk to people like that. But now is not a time to be nervous, because if we don't win these elections, if Antonio doesn't win, this is one of the most competitive congressional races in the country, who's going to check our president? From the research I've done, only 16% of people aged 18 to 24 voted in 2016. In terms of the country as a whole, the voter turnout was about 54%. In other democracies around the world, the Netherlands had an election last year, over 90% turnout. The group of people that is really not voting are the people that are my age, who are 20 years old, even the people who are 30 years old, and even the people who are 35 to 40 years old, even 50-year-olds. The people who do vote all the time are the people who are 60 plus. And what I try to say to these young people who are apolitical or might otherwise not vote is, who do you want making choices for you? Do you want it to be someone who's around the same age you are? Do you want it to be someone who has similar feelings on issues? Because for the people around here, especially the people my age who don't even know who their representative is, it doesn't take long to talk to them and convince them. Just someone has to do it. So in terms of young people being active and engaged, that's what's going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not we're going to take back this country. And that's what's going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not we're going to be able to say a firm, solid no to the things that Donald Trump and the people around him are doing. Because from all the young people I've talked to, and during the primaries, I registered about 30 people to vote. Widely, it was just me going up to college students and young people in cafes and saying, "Are you registered to vote?" And then we'd get into a conversation and talk about it. Young people are so much more likely to lean left and just understand the basic human rights that we've talked about, the LGBT rights, the women's rights, rights for immigrants, rights for people of color, equality for everyone. That's a crucial tenet for so many young people. And that's usually enough to get them to vote for Democrats, because there's one party that clearly does champion that and one party that clearly does not. But when it gets down to it, and when you start talking about the fiscal side of things and trickle-down economics and how the Republican plans do nothing but hurt the people who are less well-off and who have less of a chance, you're going to get young people to vote. The problem is there's not enough outreach to those people. And again, people aren't talking about the issues that they care about. And the young people, if they were to vote, we'd sweep it. We would sweep this election. It wouldn't even be close. But they know that we're not going to. And that's the most unfortunate thing. And that's the thing that's most difficult for me as a young person who is so passionate, is if what's going on right now isn't enough to make them vote, I don't know what will be. And that's why I've had to come to the conclusion that it's not what's going on, it's the fact that there's not enough direct outreach to those people. And if the Democratic Party really wanted to win, they'd go after young people like nothing else. We're not always going to be in a place where the Democrats can just say, look at them, vote for us. And it's going to be very soon. That time is going to be very soon, when if the Democrats don't start running on issues that matter, and if they don't start running proactively on things they want to do and change, we're going to have a problem. And I think a lot of the individual people who are running on the Democratic ticket are doing that. But another major motivator for young people too is to talk about the changes that should be made within the Democratic Party. I myself loathe the two-party system and think it's in itself anti-democratic. I'm sick of Democrats like Joe Manchin who vote for Brett Kavanaugh. I'm sick of Democrats who still take a ton of corporate money and are bought and sold. There are people like that on both sides of the aisle. And people like Tom Perez, who gave the okay to the endangered senators to vote no or to vote yes on Kavanaugh if they were so inclined. There are things within my party that I want to see changed. And I think that that's another motivating factor for young people, is that if you get your voice involved in the Democratic Party, you can make it your Democratic Party, because it is a big tent party. And I understand that we have to recognize and accept people from all facets of belief. But when it comes to people like Joe Manchin voting for Kavanaugh, it's things like that where it's like, just go ahead and switch parties if you're going to do that. And I think the Democrats should be more stringent in certain areas, and I think they should also loosen up in other areas if they want to get the right people involved.